what I'll show next is I mentioned that it's all about getting to production, right? This is cool. You're deploying stuff. You're building apps, but like I really care mostly about going all the way to the end. So like we really need unit tests next, right? So let's set up a unit test for the WebSocket connection. So Alchemy has some utilities that allow you to write tests that deploy their own isolated infrastructure. So it stands up the infrastructure, runs all the assertions, and then destroys the infrastructure at the end of the test. So this is great for iterating locally. So you get feedback to your AI as quickly as possible of what went wrong at runtime. Like the type system guarantees the infrastructure is correct, then the tests guarantee that the runtime is correct. And then you can iterate really quickly, right? Just say AI, build this feature, iterate till the test pass, right? So let's have a look at the test that it creates. So need to just go fix one little type error. And all right, let's look at the test. You'll notice that I've got this little before all here that has a return value. So the before all takes an effect, and it's going to run that effect before all the stacks and then returning the value. And the value that I get back is an effect. So this is an effect to the properties of my stack. So you can see that I get my URL. And then inside my test, I can just yield that stack, grab the URL for the ephemeral worker that I'm testing against, hit it as many times as I want, and then destroy the stack. And also, if I am running in CI/CD, if I'm running locally, I don't want to always destroy the stack. So you can do this after all skip if, right? So like, hey, I'm running locally, don't destroy the stack, just let me run quickly. So if I run, oh yeah, little bug in our dependencies, unfortunately. If I run the test now, you'll see that it's deploying the infrastructure as part of the tests, and then it'll run some assertions against the test, and then it won't destroy it. I'll make it destroyed on the next run. So cool. We have tests running against real infrastructure that quickly, right? Let's just put the destroy back, see what it does. And then destroys the infrastructure, right? So that's just CI/CD right there. Throw that into GitHub Action, put in a pull request, all the states maintained between different pull request runs. You got your CI/CD for free with real infrastructure. So that's like,
and with Alchemy's, with this type of test strategy, could you also theoretically set up like local infrastructure if you wanted to, like through like, I don't know, Docker or VMs or whatever you wanted to do? You could theoretically use Alchemy to do all of that infrastructure provisioning as well.
Yeah, infrastructure doesn't need to be cloud, right? It really just means anything under what I need. It's just like it's the foundation of what you're running on. Docker Compose is perfectly valid. Even just like I've got it for like EC2, setting up some like systemd daemons running on an EC2 instance is a perfectly valid use case for infrastructure as code. It's just declarative applications. Yeah.
There was a question in chat that sort of linked into this, which I think the answer is pretty much like what with any, but the question was with what providers can Alchemy be used? And maybe you could talk about like what providers you could currently support, and then like more generally what providers you think could be used with Alchemy.
Yeah, well, the answer is, like you said, any. A resource is just a create, update, delete lifecycle. That's what it is. You can do anything with that. You could scaffold coding projects if you wanted to. Create scripts could be, but like I wouldn't go that far. We support Cloudflare really strongly right now and AWS. We have some stuff for GitHub. So we have GitHub resources for managing GitHub secrets, variables, and comments. So the way that like your CI/CD posts a comment to your pull request is through Alchemy. So when you deploy Alchemy, it declares a comment resource which updates on every deploy with the preview URL. Right. So there's your preview URL feature for free. So we have those. We've got PlanetScale coming. Sort of focusing on this core of Cloudflare, PlanetScale, AWS. Stripe is another one that will add like how quickly can you go from zero to a payable app, right? That's operational. We've got Axiom resources. I'm deploying Axiom dashboards for Alchemy to monitor the use of our CLI thank you effect for the OTel integration, by the way, like so great. I just turned it on, and then and then AI generated my dashboards, and I can see all the usage of all the resources. It's so good. Alchemy, I haven't implemented that feature yet, but I'm going to add just like enable OTel, and then all your infrastructure instantly gets OTel exported to where you want it, and you can just see all your dashboards, and all these things can be just like instrumented automatically for you, right? So we know the bindings, we know the connections, we just do OTel for you for free almost. So yeah, like that's the answer. Is anything you can dream of can be a provider, and if you go to the Alchemy repo and you just any coding agent say, hey, build me this resource, 5 minutes later, you'll probably have it, right? It'll be tested, it'll be built, and you can just commit that to our repo.
It's very nice that the whole concept of the resource is built around the simple like CRUD like life cycle, because that means like declaring your own custom resources becomes pretty easy, which we could probably get to a little bit later. Like scaffolding out your own resources, I know is like a easy to do with Alchemy, but there are a few questions in the chat about Alchemy replacing serverless. Like there's two questions, one asking if Alchemy can replace serverless, and the second, is it an agnostic replacement for serverless? I think that maybe it's worth explaining to folks like the distinction here between the infrastructure and like the code for folks who've
By
never used
serverless,
an IAC tool.
by serverless, do they mean serverless stack, serverless the company? Serverless could mean a lot of things. So I'm assuming they
I'm
mean the serverless like YAML stuff.
Yeah, I'm assuming that either they mean like I'm assuming that they mean like the AWS feature serverless, like the. But you guys
Oh,
can clarify to me if that's not what you folks mean. But I think that that's what they mean.
well, remember this is a tool for configuring infrastructure. So we're deploying a serverless worker here. Cloudflare is serverless. We just deploy it and give you a nice DX over it, right? There's also serverless stack or SST. This is a direct replacement for SST built in native TypeScript. Like SST is not TypeScript. It's just TypeScript on top of Go. This is native effect TypeScript. And one thing I didn't show, but I wasn't planning to show, but like we could just touch on it quickly is um, I mentioned that effect is the best way to build, but like if you got a bunch of apps in SST or in Alchemy V1, like nothing's stopping you doing the async experience. We support that just as easily. You can just reference a worker and off it goes. You still get inferred environments, so you can deploy Lambda functions that work on SST, Pulumi, CDK. This works with all those. We're leaning hard into the effect experience because I think it's the best way to get all the way to production. But hey, you know, pragmatism matters. Infrastructure as code should be pragmatic. You can deploy anything. Like you can deploy a Rust binary if you want to. It supports anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what's cool, what I really like about Alchemy, I like the fact that it's not creating a distinction between the infrastructure and the code. Like the platform that you're deploying to just becomes a part of your application.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really need to think about, like, I think the problem I've always had with IAC in general is the fact that it's two steps. You deploy your infrastructure and then you go wherever your code is, and then you deploy your code, and you have to make sure that you did X before Y to make sure that things were done the correct way. I
Mm-hmm.
think what I really like about Alchemy is obviously the IAC piece and building an effect and everything like that is all super cool. But like even more simply, I just like the fact that there's no distinction between the infrastructure and the code. It all becomes like just your application, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that maybe that's what's confusing folks a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
especially anybody who's used an IAC tool before in the chat, is like your application and the infrastructure with Alchemy become like the same code base.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have like a separate infrastructure. And I mean, you can have like a distinction in your code base, but like
You
I
could
think
have
that maybe that's what's
you
like
could have the
causing confusion.
separation if you want to. Like this is separation, right? Like
Right.
think of this as your escape hatch or like your FFI call, right? Like hey, nothing wrong with calling out to a foreign function every now and then, but like the more you can keep in a single type safe program where effect is protecting you, TypeScript is protecting you, Alchemy is protecting you from infrastructure. You can be sure that like even linters can help you protect you from like too many policies, right?